Universal officially confirms that the lost continent at Islands of Adventure is finally being replaced. Hello everybody, welcome. We now have permits and construction details on what could be replacing this land, and it is more exciting than you could have ever imagined. And we are going to get to the bottom of it all right now. Ever since Epic Universe opened just a few months ago, everyone has been wondering and asking what is going to be coming next for Universal Orlando Resort. And specifically, will they be turning their attention back to the older parks? Though there are lots of expansion rumors for Epic Universe itself, things like a Wicked expansion, a Creature from the Black Lagoon expansion, and even more Super Nintendo World. Which of course on the surface sounds fantastic. However, a lot of us are really hoping that they turn their attention now back to the original parks like Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. Both of those parks have taken sort of a backseat for several years now with not a ton of investment going into them because of course everything is being pouring into Epic Universe. Well, we quickly got our answer when they announced the shuttering and the closure of Rip Ride Rocket and the replacement that's going to be going in there. That construction has already started. As you know, I've done videos on it. There's lots of speculation on what's going in there. Fast and Furious, Ghostbusters, something else entirely. And so that already signaled it's time to reinvest in Universal Studios and Islands. Now we have brand new information about the defunct Lost Continent over in Islands of Adventure. As you know, Lost Continent has been hanging on for a thread for quite a while. It was a lot bigger originally. They took some of it out, replaced it with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, the Hogsmeade edition, and then it just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller over the years. It has been just a dead area for years now, and everyone pretty much universally agrees you gotta do something with that space. Like, out of everything that needs fixing at Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, Lost Continent is probably the biggest one. So recent permits filed with the city of Orlando on September 10th detail out about a 5-acre plot of land at Islands of Adventure specifically that will be going under construction, demolition starting to happen very soon. And based on the parcel information with the permits, we knew that that was Islands of Adventure, not Universal Studios. So there was a lot of speculation as to what it could be, and then very recently, Universal has now come out and confirmed, yes, this permit for demolition for 5 acres is indeed the Lost Continent. That is where it is going to be taking place. So this is really exciting. That place has just been empty. They closed the Sinbad show. That closed on September 16th of 2018. That show has been empty for 7 years now. Then they closed Poseidon's Fury, which me personally, one of my favorite attractions at Islands of Adventure. I just loved that show. I absolutely thought it was amazing. But unfortunately, they decided to close that down May 9th of 2023. So all of the attractions in Lost Continent were now gone. However, there's surprisingly a decent amount of stuff still in that space in operation. You have the amazing world-class restaurant Mythos, of course, but there are also a lot of other smaller shops and restaurants there. There is a location called Forever Pearls. There's Treasures of Poseidon, which is a shop, 2 restaurants, the Fire Eater's Grill, Doc Sugru's Desert Kebab House, which of course sells kebabs. Then there are a few other locations, Historic Families, Star Soul's Psychic Readings, Shop of Wonders, the Mystic Fountain, and of course the All Hallows Eve Boutique. So there's still a decent amount of things in that land. Now what's important about these permits to know is that these are demolition specific permits. These are not permits about them building new things. The Director of Public Relations, Kristen Smith, came out on record and said, in the coming months there will be construction activity in Lost Continent as part of site planning to ensure the area is ready for any future developments. Now that just goes to show that they're being very tight-lipped about what's going on in this space and what they're going to be replacing with, but they definitely have a plan. This is not just them flattening the area and then preparing it for something in case they need it. They would not flatten it if they didn't know what was going in there and they didn't plan on starting construction immediately. So based on all the permits that we have so far, it looks like only a portion of the Lost Continent will be demolished. Not all of the land in its entirety, and that's important. It says overall about 5 acres, 4.9 acres will be demoed, and this looks like it's primarily going to be the show buildings for Sinbad and for Poseidon's Fury and some of the surrounding areas. So this very likely means that Doc Sugre's, the kebab house there, All Hallows Eve Boutique, and the Mystic Fountain, yes, sorry fans of the Mystic Fountain, it looks like those things are going to be going away and are part of this demolition. However, as I said, that doesn't mean that everything is going away. So again, this is very important. What is staying based on the acreage and what we're thinking is going to happen? Right now, it looks like Mythos, that big restaurant there, is going to be staying. Fire Eater's Grill looks like it also might be staying. Of course, obviously going to be rethemed. Then the Star Souls psychic reading, that space, I doubt it will stay as some sort of psychic reading thing, but it is part of that, like almost connected to that Fire Eater's restaurant there, that sort of walkway in space, and potentially even the archway there may end up staying. It's important to know that in order to add all those additional areas like Mythos and Fire Eaters and the sort of store there, that would require an additional 2 to 2.5 acres that need to be added to this demolition. And you can see that in the blue areas on this map, that would be the additional 2.5 acres. So there's just no way that the entire land is included in that 4.9 acres. So this gives us a lot of clues as to what's going to be coming to that land. Because it seems like they're going to be keeping some of the structural components, some of the buildings like the Mythos building, and some of the theming that already exists in that land. Which means whatever goes into that space has to match the visual aesthetic of what's already there. So we can immediately rule out several IPs that people had been speculating and thinking might go in that space. First is Wicked. Wicked is definitely out. Nothing in the world of Wicked matches that aesthetic at all. So it doesn't make any sense at all. Wicked is not coming to that land. It may be coming somewhere else at Universal and one of their other properties, but it's not going to Lost Continent. The next one, which is very depressing because I'm really waiting for this one, is Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings does not make sense there either. Yes, that sort of fantastical whimsy of Lord of the Rings, it is similar, but it doesn't really match what's there. It would have to be totally transformed. I don't see that happening. I do think Lord of the Rings is potentially coming somewhere, so I'm still holding out hope. But I don't think this is going to be Lord of the Rings. I just don't think that the visual aesthetic matches well enough. I'm not saying they couldn't pull it off, but I feel like it's a stretch. I feel like it would be a big stretch to get there. And then, of course, Pokemon. Again, I'm not seeing a match with Pokemon. I don't see it fitting there. We already know Pokemon thinks it might be going into where Simpsons is, even though I did report on in a previous video that Simpsons extension may have actually happened. We don't know for sure. So it may be longer, it may take longer, we may not even get Pokemon at all, but I just don't see it going there. I don't feel like it matches well enough. That leaves us with two primary contenders, the first of which is, of course, Zelda. Long speculated. I've been speculating Zelda is coming to potentially Lost Continent for years now. I mean, you can go back to all my videos. I've been talking about this for a while. Obviously, renewed speculation that Zelda is coming to Universal because of all the things that Epic Universe put in. If you go to that Super Nintendo store there, right at the outside of Super Nintendo World in Epic Universe, there's all sorts of teasers for Zelda. There's the Triforce there on the ground when you first walk in. There's all the stained glass windows with all the characters from Zelda there. There's merchandise, and there's even the iconic Legend of Zelda music playing in that store. It's very indicative that Zelda is coming in some way, shape, or form at one of the parks. We also, back in January of 2024, caught a glimpse of Eiji Aonuma, who is basically Legend of Zelda's primary producer. We actually got a glimpse of him standing side by side with Shigeru Miyamoto with hard hats on during an Epic Universe behind-the-scenes construction video. That Legend of Zelda producer being there fueled lots of speculation that Zelda could be coming very soon. What's really interesting about that particular segment is that it was actually cut. It was actually removed from that video, and which is really telling that they removed it, but unfortunately the internet never forgets, so it's still out there for you to see, but it was removed. So it was a very clear indicator that something strange may be afoot with Zelda. Now, if Zelda does end up going in Lost Continent, we don't have a lot of details on what could potentially go there. There were rumors years ago about a potential, some sort of like moving theater type show, or potentially like a flying, almost a Peter Pan type ride, a dark ride where you're in some sort of like flying ship of some kind, like a boat, a pirate ship or something, and you're flying through the land. I don't know, we haven't heard anything about that in a long time. Obviously, easily the Mythos restaurant could be turned into some sort of Zelda themed restaurant. Again, it fits the aesthetic of the land. Having a Zelda show would be really cool. However, I would be kind of surprised if they were to demo the Sinbad Theater and then create a new show like that for Zelda. It seems to me like they would just keep the existing theater and then do something new in there, which I guess is possible, but it seems like they're gonna flatten that space. So I don't think we're gonna end up with a show. I think we'll probably end up with one like more high-end dark ride of some kind, an indoor ride. Islands of Adventure suffers from not having enough indoor attractions. And so I think we'll probably end up with some sort of Zelda, Legend of Zelda dark ride there, and then maybe like a smaller kids ride or a second attraction of some kind. However, given everything that we know, it feels to me more like Zelda is going to go into Epic Universe as a next big expansion, either in a new expansion plot or potentially as the next expansion for Super Nintendo World. It seems to me to fit way better over there. Makes more sense for them to build a Legend of Zelda area in that space at Epic Universe than it does to add it to Islands of Adventure. So for now, I'm gonna park the Zelda over at Epic Universe, and I want to talk about my next biggest contender that I think could be coming to Lost Continent, and that is One Piece. Mark Woodbury has come out multiple times on record and said that they are going to continue to lean in and use their owned IPs, things like DreamWorks and Minions, but he's also said that they absolutely are going to be continuing to partner with other companies, other brands, to bring other iconic IPs into their parks. You consistently see this with their other attractions. They've been doing this. This has been their strategy from the get-go. Disney's strategy has become the complete opposite, which is removing any non-IPs from their parks and only going owned IPs. Because it's expensive to license things out, the amount of profit that you get and revenue from licensing things out can be very small. The margins can be thin depending on the contract. Universal, however, has no problem doing that. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter is the biggest example of that, a non-owned IP that they have thrown in on like you wouldn't imagine. I mean, there are now 3 giant Wizarding World of Harry Potter areas in 3 separate parks. There's also one in Hollywood. I mean, they are continuing to invest in that IP, even though they don't own it. So One Piece definitely could be one of the big ones. It is a huge brand. I mean, you may not think it is huge here in the States. You may not think it is huge because you've never really paid much attention to it, but One Piece is a monumental IP across all different countries, especially outside the US, but even inside the US. This is a massive IP. I think the new Netflix show that has been created has drawn a lot of new interest and a lot of new people into the One Piece IP. We have precedent for One Piece. There was a partnership that Universal did with One Piece as part of their 2025 Fan Fest out there in Universal Hollywood. We got to see 5 of the iconic characters through meet and greets at the Fan Fest. There were also special foods, menu items, and merchandise that was purchasable at that Fan Fest. And this was highly popular at Universal Hollywood during 2025. It's like extremely popular. And the theming of One Piece absolutely works with Lost Continent. Like, couldn't work better. You could almost just use that as a set. The way it looks right now, you could almost use that as a set for the Netflix live action One Piece. Like, it's perfectly matched. So if we end up getting One Piece over at Lost Continent, what could we be getting? Definitely meet and greets for sure, hands down. But I also speculate we could be getting a boat ride. I talked about this before as far as this new Mac ride system, the rocking boat ride system, which just won a Golden Ticket Award for Best Innovation. It hasn't really been used that well anywhere yet. The Futuroscape Park that used it is a nice little attraction, but it hasn't been used to its fullest. Speculation was that that boat ride system was originally created for an Epic Universe attraction that didn't happen. And it's a boat ride. Pirates, One Piece, boat, hello, makes perfect sense. I could totally see this rocking boat system or some variation of that being a killer boat attraction at Universal, at Islands of Adventure in the Lost Continent. Like, again, think about a dark ride. I talked about that with Zelda. They need more dark rides. Think about some sort of like rocking boat, crazy pirate, on water attraction that's completely enclosed inside of a giant building. There's absolutely space for it in this land. You think about the Poseidon's Fury, how big that space was, how big the Sinbad show is. Plenty of space for a large, dark ride. That would be something to see. I have to say, I would be pumped for that. I still want to see Creature from the Black Lagoon as some sort of water attraction, dark ride. But I think a One Piece pirate rocking boat ride would also be killer. I think we need more of these types of attractions and less of the intense roller coasters that we're getting at Epic Universe and obviously Islands of Adventure, which is big on them. I think they need more of these types of attractions. And then the other big thing that we could be getting, which I've heard rumor about, is a giant pirate ship. Essentially, maybe one of the pirate ships from the show could be making its way into the lagoon of Islands of Adventure. Right now, the lagoon itself does have some iconic things. You've got the Jurassic Park sort of building there right in the front. So if you walk into Islands of Adventure and go straight, not a lot of people do, go straight over to the lagoon instead of left or right, you can see like a really cool picture of the lagoon. You can see lots of little things that kind of stand out that are iconic about the different lands. And then if you were to place a pirate ship right there in front of the Mythos restaurant, the theming there works. I think it would look really cool. It would give you this like iconic pirate ship like piece for that land that kind of draws your eye over there and makes you excited to go to that land. You can see it from a lot of different places in the park. I think it makes a lot of sense to put it right there. Could be really cool. So a couple of other things. It could be something else entirely that we haven't talked about. That does not mean it's going to be Zelda or One Piece. I just feel like those are the two highest contenders. This is also just the first of many permits to come. So you're going to want to keep checking back on this channel because I will be hitting you with all the information and breaking things down. More permits are going to be coming. We're going to start seeing layouts. We're going to start seeing construction permits of buildings. So that'll be coming soon. There could also be more information about more acreage that gets added to this plot. So just because they are flattening the 5 acres doesn't necessarily mean the other 2 or 2.5 are off the table. Or they could increase the space and do work on those as well. So it doesn't mean 100% that those are out. And of course, everything is subject to change. So that's all I've got for you in this episode. I am pumped. I'm super excited about the possibility of what's going into Lost Continent. I'm gonna keep putting my money on One Piece, potentially Zelda. We'll see what ends up happening. As soon as we know more, I will definitely let you know on this channel. So stay glued, hit the notification button, and subscribe to my channel so that you know when my next videos drop. Be sure to like this content. It helps me out when you like it, gives me engagement, gets other people to be able to see this video. And of course, I love to hear from you down in the comments. What do you think is going into that land? Do you hear any other rumors as to what else could be going there? You got any insider information, rumors you're hearing? Love to hear about it and chat with you down in the comments, so be sure to leave those below. Once again, thanks you so much for watching, and until I see you next time, the noble way is the easy way. Bye-bye, everybody.